What's up, curling fans? Austin here, and I've got a lot to recap over these past few days. First and foremost, we need to get into the best of threes at the pre-trials and how those turned out. Starting on the men's side, Game 1 was a really good performance by Team Jordan McDonald overall as a team, and also very good hammer efficiency. They were 3 for 4, counting, especially with the 4 in the 8th end that shut the game down. Game 2 was ridiculous because it basically felt like it was rigged by Greg Owasco, because Jordan couldn't really make any draws during the game. Game 3 felt a lot better, which I was really surprised about because I thought the ice was going to be really terrible once again. Jordan made some key shots in the 7th and 9th ends to get some big deuces, then shut the game down with a really nice board-weight double coming home. I'm very proud that Team McDonald was able to pull it off given the difficult circumstances, and I think they might have a chance of making the playoffs in what is probably the worst trials field I've ever seen in my life. On the women's side, basically the same story. Game 1 went really well for Team Sturmey. Game 2 went terrible because Owasco was rigging it, trying to force the third game on purpose. Then Sturmey dominated Game 3, up 9-2 after 7 ends, and only giving up a 2 in the 8th end, and after that, Team McMillan shook hands. People will say that it was one of the most underwhelming final games of a pre-trials they've ever seen, but Team Sturmey had a massive lead, so I didn't care. Of course, both teams insert themselves into the trials, which, again, like I said, the fields look pretty horrible. On the men's side, Gushu is washed up, Kui is washed up, Rylan Kleider is basically learning at these trials. I don't think they're going to do much of anything. Team John Epping, especially John himself, is Mr. Choke-A-Lot. Team Mike McEwen is not to be underestimated, but they haven't really had the best lead-up. It's only Dunstone and Jacobs that I think could be taken very seriously all the way through, and I wouldn't be shocked if they were in the best-of-3 final. On the women's side, in general, it's Rachel Holman versus everybody else. Canadian women's curling is so bad that I don't think anyone other than Holman had even a decent lead-up, excluding Team Sturmey because they get major confidence from winning pre-trials. The only team that I'm not going to criticize is Team Kate Cameron, because I know they've all been trying really hard, especially given the circumstances. And frankly, I'm just happy to see Brianne Harris back on the ice. It's been really tough to see her lose 2 years of her career because of a doping suspension that she wasn't responsible for. All in all, the trials will still be a lot of fun. I'm expecting horrible ice conditions again because it is Greg Owasco yet again doing the ice. But it's going to be interesting in late November what's going to go down. The Pan-Continental Championships just finished off in the US. On the women's side, shockingly, Team Canada, Team Rachel Holman, lost 3 games during the event, including 2 losses against China, once in the round robin, and another one in the final. I'm not disappointed in what's going on because I know they're probably going to have their way with all the other Canadian teams in the trials. Team Canada, Team Brad Jacobs, won the gold on the men's side, which is pretty unsurprising. I don't really have much to say about that. But I do want to congratulate Team Australia, skipped by Helen Williams, for qualifying for their first World Championship in Calgary later next year. Plus, they're also a part of the Olympic qualification event, so they have a lot to be excited about. Now, I'm going to recap some of the bigger tour spiels that happened during the week. The Dave Jones Mayflower Cash Spiel in Halifax just ended, and we had 2 very interesting finals. On the women's side, It was all New Brunswick, as Team Andrea Kelly beat Team Melissa Adams 6-1. I also want to mention that there were 2 Nova Scotia teams that made the semifinals and then lost to those teams. Team Kristen McDermott and Team Rebecca Reagan did very well, especially since Nova Scotia is wide open this time around with no Christina Black and no Team Black. It's really interesting to see which teams have a really good lead up to those playdowns. Same in New Brunswick. It's a very competitive province as well, with Team Kelly, Team Adams, Team Sylvie Quillian, and Team Melody Forsyth. It's going to be great to watch those teams clash as well. There were 2 Sask Tour events that took place. On the men's side, we had the S3 Curling Stadium Series in Swift Current, where Team Kelly Knapp continued their dominance at the Sask Tour events, beating Team Steve Laycock in the final, 5-0 in 5 ends. I want to give a shout out to Team Bruce Cordy, one of the top senior teams in the province, who made the semifinals. They proved that they could still hang with the young guys, and I would be delighted if they decided to commit to the provincial championship and maybe playing in that and not just trying to win senior provincials. The women's side, Team Taylor Reese Hansen continued to back up their run to the final at the Autumn Gold by winning the Lloydminster Sask Tour event 11-7 in the final against Penny Barker. They're in some really good form, and I'm very excited about their chances at the BC Championship. Saskatchewan is low-key my favorite provincial championship, especially on the women's side, because you never know what's going to happen. It's always super competitive. Likes of Penny Barker, defending champion Nancy Martin, Team Jolene Campbell, plus a couple others sprinkled in there, could make that one heck of a show. One team that has already beaten Team Rachel Holman this year, Team Madalena DuPont of Denmark, won an event in Sweden. There's a potential that it could be the final season and the final Olympics for Madalena and her sister Denise, but I'm sure they're going to go really hard for it and just have a lot of fun as they usually do. That's all I have for this recap, but tune in next week where I will talk about more tour events, including the Swiss Cup Basel in Switzerland.